Dan Gilbert is the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and at one point, the relationship was sour with him and LeBron James. Now, when LeBron first announced the decision to leave the Cavs to join his buddies D. Wade, Chris Bosh, and the Miami Heat in 2010, Dan Gilbert went on a verbal tirade against James. He called his departure a, quote, cowardly betrayal and, quote, a shocking act of disloyalty. Now, Dan Gilbert will go on to be fined $100,000. The Miami Heat will go on to 4 straight NBA titles. The killing part is Dan Gilbert even guaranteed that the Cavs would win a championship before LeBron. We all see what happened with that. Like I said, the Heat went on to 4 straight championships. The Cavaliers didn't have 4 straight winning seasons until LeBron would return in 2014 to win the Cavs their first title and the city's first championship in over 50 years. And all's well that ends well, until he left again. Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez is regarded as one of the best strikers in all of football. Not NFL football, I'm talking about soccer football. Now, he's racked up a couple of gold boots, and he scored over 500 career goals for his club and country, but that always comes with some kind of controversy. Suarez has been labeled a cheat after numerous accusations of diving, and he's bitten opponents. In fact, at the 2014 World Cup, Suarez was actually shown to have bitten Italian offender Giorgio Chinolini. Suarez received a 4-month suspension, but he still would not learn from his mistakes, biting both Otman Bakal and Branislav Ivanovic. Both incidents would pile up almost a 20-game suspension. An El Gol digital article ranked him the 5th dirtiest footballer in 2013. After a missed assignment in a preseason game, Meyer was so furious that the next day in practice, he threatened to cut every last player on the team. Now, according to 4 witnesses in the room, Meyer also said, quote, and do you know what would happen if I cut you guys? You couldn't get a job making more than $15 an hour. How insulting is that? How horrible is that to have your head coach, somebody who's supposed to be your leader, talk to you like that? And if you thought that was bad, Meyer berated a player so harshly, he made that player cry. Other players had to come around and console him. That's how bad it was. Now, the final nail in the coffin was when he decided it would be a good idea to kick place kicker Josh Lambo, who he referred to as dipshit, excuse my language, or shitbag, excuse my language again. This all would lead to the Jaguars parting ways with Meyer before the season ended. John Lloyd Rocker was a relief pitcher. He was taken by the Atlanta Braves in the 1993 MLB draft. Now, as talented as he was on the mound, it was his most controversial statement that made him famous. Now, who remembers in 1999 when he was asked about whether or not he would play for the New York Yankees or the New York Mets? And his response was, quote, I'd retire first. It's the most hectic, nerve-wracking city. Imagine having to take the 7 train to the ballpark looking like you're riding through Beirut, next to some kid with purple hair, next to some queer with AIDS, next to some dude who just got out of jail for the 4th time, right next to some 20-year-old mom with 4 kids. It's depressing, end quote. Next quote, the biggest thing I don't like about New York is the foreigners. You can walk an entire block in Times Square and not hear anybody speaking English. Asians and Koreans, Vietnamese and Indians and Russians and Spanish people and everything up there. How the hell did they get in this country? End quote. Now, it don't get no more racist than that. That really sounded racist. It sounded homophobic, all in one. You cannot say that. Come on, man. He's also directed slurs towards patrons at a Dallas restaurant that is, by the way, in an LGBT neighborhood, and defended former teammate Ozzie Guillen, who referred to Chicago Sun-Times sports columnist Jay Mariotti as the F word. That the word, I'm talking about the word that's used to degrade gay males. I'm not going to say that word. I don't say that word. But it don't get no more homophobic than John Rocker. Tonya Harding. Why me? Why me? Why me? You remember those words? How can you ever forget? Tonya Harding wanted to make the 1994 Winter Olympics so bad that she and her husband at the time, Jeff Gillooly, would orchestrate a plot to knock off her arch rival, Nancy Kerrigan. So here's what happened. Gillooly hired a hitman named Shane Stant to strike Kerrigan in the leg with a huge baton. He wasn't the only one involved. Stant's uncle, Derek Smith, and Harding's bodyguard, Sean Eckert, also took a role in this attack. Now, by the grace of God, Kerrigan wasn't seriously hurt, but she was forced to drop out of the national championships the next night. Harding would actually go on to take gold in the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, which guaranteed her spot at the Winter Olympics in Norway. But fellow skaters loved Kerrigan and got behind her and supported her so hard that they offered her a spot in the Olympics anyway. Meanwhile, the FBI would go on to launch an investigation, and Eckert would confess just 4 days later to his involvement into the attack. 2 weeks later, Gillooly turned himself in and confessed to orchestrating the whole thing. Harding, meanwhile, didn't say a word, and she kept mum's the word about it, if you know what I mean. Gillooly, however, would go on trial and testify against his ex-wife and plead guilty to racketeering days later. Meanwhile, a few days later, evidence would recover that would crack the case wide open. Gillooly and Harding's trash was recovered, revealing notes of Nancy Kerrigan's practice schedule, and handwriting experts confirmed that the notes were in fact written by Harding. Now, despite the evidence stacked against Harding, the U.S. Olympic Committee let her participate anyway. And let me tell you something. If that was Star Andrew, never mind. Harding broke her shoelace and would ask for a reskate, but it wouldn't even matter at the end of the day because she would still finish in 8th place, while Nancy Kerrigan would actually go on to take the silver. Finally, on March 16, 1994, Harding would finally plead guilty to conspiracy to hinder prosecution. She received 3 years probation, a $160,000 fine. Her 1994 national title was revoked, and she received a lifetime ban from U.S. figure skating. Everyone else involved got jail time. Tonya Harding did end up with a 3-3 boxing record. Yes, she tried boxing, finished 3-3. Whoever she got them 3 victories over was trash. Trash. Antonio Margarito held multiple world championships in the welterweight division, including the WBO championship from 2002 to 2007. But his boxing legacy will forever be tainted because in 2009, just before his fight with Sugar Shane Mosley, Margarito was involved in an incident where he was caught using illegal hand wraps containing gypsum, which is a calcium sulfate, which, when you combine it with moisture, it creates a plaster called plaster of Paris. Long story short, what that means is that Antonio Margarito may have been hitting opponents with bricks. Now, in November 2009, red stains were found on the hand wraps that Margarito used in the Cotto fight, were similar to the stains on the insert seized before the Mosley fight, which suggests that Margarito may have used these plastered wraps against Cotto and possibly other fights as well. Margarito and his trainer would receive a 1-year ban from the sport before coming back and losing to Manny Pacquiao, resulting in a broken orbital bone, and Cotto finally getting his revenge in 2011. To this day, Margarito claims he does not have any knowledge of the substance that was in his gloves.